Well, hello and welcome to today's Back to Basics show with Coach SheriAnne. I'm Alex Juarez, AARP Arizona's Communications Director. AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to the more than 100 million Americans that are 50 plus and their families, such as health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. AARP also produces the nation's largest circulation publications, such as the AARP Magazine and the AARP Bulletin. In the month of August, AARP offers events and enriching experiences close to home and from your home that help you make connections and serve others. While other situations are different, our need for connection is universal. Now more than ever, we know that connecting with family and friends is vital to aging well and living longer and happier lives. So visit us at aarp.org/Arizona for more tips. And thank you again for joining us on Back to Basics with Coach SheriAnne. Today, we're going to be talking about eating on a healthy eating healthy on a budget. And Coach SheriAnne, hello. Always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Alex. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And
Good.
you
It
know,
was cute.
yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No,
No,
go
no,
ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, this is a really important topic because it seems like the economy has been up and down and the prices up and down. The gas goes up, it goes down. We see the same at the grocery store. So, how can we eat healthy and maintain a budget? I think that's a really important conversation. So, I'm really looking forward to this show, just getting some tips I'm going to pass along to my wife because we're also on a budget.
Well, it's funny because when you kind of had a slip there, you said a healthy budget, and I'm like, what? That's
Healthy
so
budget, yeah.
true though, because we all do need a healthy budget.
Yes.
That's how we
Yes.
maintain our
Eating
sanity.
healthy
Uh,
on a budget.
and in full disclosure, like when things started kind of like the prices of things going crazy, like eggs, for instance, and and the inflation in our groceries, there was a part of me that did the total ostrich syndrome. Like I just didn't want to address it or look at it or think about it because
Mhm.
eating healthy for me and my family is really very important, and it was kind of a non-negotiable. I'm like, well, it is what it is. Like I'm not going to not buy eggs. I'm not going to not buy fruits and vegetables, and meats and whatnot. But it got to a point where I was like, wow, what is happening? Like, and so then I had to really go address the budget and really go back to my tips that I'm going to offer here and revamp how I was shopping, because it was impacting us in a major way, because I wasn't going to alter how we were eating, and
Right.
so and I also do want to address, like, when we talk about shopping or eating healthy, the word healthy has a tendency to make people be like, oh, like, do I really have to? Do I really want to? And, we can use other words, in there, in the sense of just a diet that's actually sustainable for you, and think about long term, for your life, and so,
Mhm.
but healthy is one of those words that we just have to kind of embrace and accept. And it's not a
Absolutely.
bad word. It's not a four-letter word for some people, like it is. But,
Yeah.
so it's really not that challenging. It's just we have a tendency to get away from it. So I have about 12 tips here that I'm going to share with you, and we'll talk about each one a little bit differently. And if you're tuning in, please let us know where you're tuning in from. Let us know what tips you're doing to try to manage, eating and shopping, on a healthy budget. And just let us know if you have any questions or concerns, and I'll be sure to reach out and take care of that for you.
Can I ask you a quick question before you go into those tips? Because I'm always confused, that people tell you that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Okay, great. I can live with that. But then you hear people like, no, you've got to do intermittent fasting. It's very important to do that as well. Uh, so what is it? What is really
That's one of
breakfast that important to start with the day with?
It is. And so it's so funny because it's a great question. And the reality is a lot of what I do with people is help decipher all of this information that they're being bombarded with the interwebs. And
Mhm.
so my phrasing is, you want to eat breakfast like a king,
Yeah.
lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper.
Huh.
And so
Okay.
it's, if you're eating 3 meals a day, that's how I encourage people to eat. You definitely, so we call it breakfast for a reason. And what's wonderful about this is in 2 weeks, I will be doing breakfast ideas,
Yes.
and then the
Right.
following we'll do lunches and then dinners. But yes, you definitely, and you want to eat breakfast. It's called breakfast for a reason because it's breaking a fast from the evening
Okay.
because you haven't eaten
Sure.
all night. So
Absolutely.
breakfast is incredibly important just to get your metabolism going, get everything, your enzymes in your body. We have so many different, processes that are happening in our body. So just to get them going. But your breakfast can be upon awakening, within a couple of hours, or it can be like later if you're doing intermittent fasting. So we can go
Yes.
ahead and address your question about intermittent fasting. So it's the broad definition of it. Well, first of all, let me tell you, if you're considering intermittent fasting, I do want you to talk to your doctor or your healthcare professional that you seek advice from, just to make sure it's a good fit for you. And so intermittent fasting is, we all do it. We just do it at different intervals. So what it
Absolutely.
is you're going longer periods without eating. And so you could do like what they call a 16 and 8, where you're, eating in just an 8-hour window and you're not eating for 16
Right.
hours,
Uh-huh.
or you can do a 12 and 12. So it's really just, it's been such a coined phrase that's been misused in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it's really just paying attention to not eating, all day long. So if you're a grazer, that's actually not very good for you. Years ago, and that's the problem with our industry, is like, when I say our industry, I mean like the healthcare industry in the sense of health and fitness and eating, nutrition. Is grazing used to be like, do you want to graze all day to keep your metabolism elevated all day? But that's really not true. There's been a lot of studies that have shown that's actually not very effective for you. And our digestive system needs a full 3 hours from the moment something goes into our mouth, 3 to 6 hours, depending upon how your body is
Mhm.
actually working, before it can actually start the digestive process in your intestines. So if you're constantly grazing, your enzymatic release is actually a little skewed. So you want to have that break so your body can go through a full
Mhm.
digestive process
Right.
and then start over again. Because it starts with, so the saliva in our
Yeah.
mouth, there's enzymes in our saliva that start the food breakdown as soon as we salivate and we start chewing food.
Excellent.
So you want to have, I say, between your mini meals, at least 3 hours.
Okay.
And so, but it's so intermittent fasting. Like for me, I haven't eaten breakfast yet. I'll eat my breakfast around 11. So I do kind of a 16-8. Sometimes I'll stretch it. But in that 8-hour window, I'll eat a lot of calories. And then I
Yeah.
wait and let my body do what it needs to do to use all of those nutrients to help my body repair. So if you have a
Sure.
lot of questions about intermittent fasting, either private message me and we can talk about it. We can set up a consultation or reach out to a healthcare professional of your choosing just to get how it works for you. Does that help?
That is fantastic, and I know that in 2 weeks we're going to be talking about healthy breakfast, so we can touch on that topic again one more time. So for those of you watching, we'll touch on that topic again. But look at that! Just want to say briefly, just all the people that are watching us and following us. So thank you so much for joining the Back to Basics show with Coach SheriAnne. We have Bev from Iowa, Rita from New Mexico, Sue from Minneapolis, Kathy in Minnesota, Loretta in Maryland, Sarah in Oklahoma, Fran in Longwood, Florida. Deborah in Illinois, Carl that says, buy the dollar bags of older produce. I'm sorry. Sheila, hello from Jacksonville, Florida. Karen from New Hampshire. Nazinga, greetings to everyone from Detroit, Michigan. So thank you so much for joining us and following us. So we just let us know how you maintain how you maintain an eating healthy on a budget. So let us know what you do for that. So let's go ahead with the tips, Coach SheriAnne.
Yes. So whoever, I didn't catch the name of the person, said the dollar produce, but yes. So we'll just jump right into that tip because I do want to acknowledge that is actually a really good. So Carl, so yes, so you want to shop produce that is seasonal and local, and so we have a store here called Sprouts and they support local growers and local producers. And so that's where I choose to get my produce because it's actually really good and priced very effectively. And in most grocers, Kroger does it, I know for sure, but there's this little stand with like mesh bags of produce that's like a day or two old that just didn't get bought. And, and they're just they might be a little bumped and bruised a little bit, but they're still fine. So if you want to do those, and every once in a while I'll check by and see what's in there and grab them. But definitely, try to shop local and don't hesitate to take a look to see that discounted fruit and veggies. And if it's really expensive and you want it, consider frozen. Frozen is actually a really good alternative because it's picked when it's very ripe and it's frozen at its peak when it's most nutrient dense. So there's nothing wrong in doing frozen fruits or vegetables.
So you don't lose any of the nutrients once they've been frozen?
No, you lose the nutrients in how you cook them.
Okay.
With fruit, like I don't mind frozen fruit because but the problem with freezing produce is it has a tendency to get a little mushy. So you have to think about, but like corn and peas and things like that, they're totally fine. Broccoli and cauliflower can be a little different just because it might get a little, mushy sometimes based on how you cook it after it's been frozen. But I've even frozen avocados and it's fine to make guacamole after the fact. Because there was this period of time. Yes. So there's no problem in even freezing your own. If you're able to buy a massive amount of because I love blueberries. And I buy berries organic and they're pricey. So if I find them where they're on sale, I might buy a massive quantity of them and then separate them out and put them in the freezer. So, but if you're buying frozen or freezing it yourself, there's nothing wrong in doing that. It's actually a really great alternative to save money. So
if I hear you correctly, I think it's important to do. I mean, when you're planning your what to buy and when you go grocery shopping, you've got to make a plan. You've got to shop smart, and then you've got to prepare healthy meals. Is that what I'm hearing you?
Yeah. So first step is to plan your meals. So you really want to plan your meals and be really effective in how you're planning your meals for the week. That's what we do. And then you can plan your week based on, what's going on. Cause like my house is chaotic because I have 2 boys in sports. And so sometimes I'll be cooking big meals ahead of time so that we can reheat them, and so, but you want to just plan your week and you can actually plan your shopping around sales, depending upon what store you choose to shop at. And every store pretty much that I know of has an app that you can use on your phone that will help you find things that are on sale. So when our normal grocer that we use is Fry's. And so I have a Fry's app and it helps me find things that are on sale and really utilize coupons. So, a Trader Joe's or Sprouts, Costco, Whole Foods, wherever you're shopping, there's a budget. I mean, there's an app that you can use to help you find sale items. So don't be afraid to use those apps. They're very user-friendly. In fact, when I set up my Kroger one, I actually was at the store and I had someone at the store help me because it was interesting in how they use their barcodes to find things that are on sale. And so there's people at the stores that will help you set up your app too. So don't be afraid to ask for help, but use those apps because they're super effective. So plan your meals. And then your next tip is going to create a shopping list based around those meals and the sales that you're seeing at stores. And so make sure you check your cupboards so that you're not duplicating buying something that you already have in your cupboard. So check your cupboard and your fridge when you make your shopping list. And so as far as shopping lists go, I use an app on my phone. It's a Microsoft to-do list. And it's nice because it's on everyone in the house has that and it's all synced to my, so if my boys want something, they go in and they can put it in the to-do list and it syncs over to mine so that I don't always have to be like, do you need anything? And I'm trying to add it to the list and it's chaotic, and it just helps streamline the shopping process. And if you have a to-do, like a shopping list, a to-do list, you'll be so much more effective at the store. Try going to the store without a list and it will feel so chaotic. I'm sure you've all done it. And you end up with stuff in your basket that you didn't plan on buying ever. It always happens. So
can I ask you a quick question? Is it true that you should never go shopping when you're hungry?
Yeah, that's another tip that I have in here is don't shop when you're hungry.
So we buy more things when we're hungry, huh?
You do. Everything looks good when you're hungry. Everything. It doesn't matter what. So yes, do not shop when you're hungry. But yeah, and when you do go shopping, what helps is to eat and shop on a budget is to shop your perimeter of your store first. So definitely do the perimeter, because on the
Right.
perimeter is where all your whole foods are, your produce, your meat, the necessity items. Everything that's on the internal aisles are typically highly processed foods, which tend to be more expensive. So shop your perimeter, make sure you have your list. It'll help you from impulse buying, because we all have impulse buying. We all do it, everyone, no matter what. There's been very few times where I've been like, I've stuck to my list and I walk in and I walk out. So have that list, shop the perimeter, and focus on the nutrient dense foods, the whole foods that are on the perimeter of the store.
Okay. All right. Very good.
So
Excellent.
next tip is meats tend to be very expensive. And so what I recommend is buying in bulk and then freezing it. So like it's over 3 pounds. It's close, sometimes 3.5 pounds of ground beef at Costco. And I
Mhm.
come home and I separate it out and I put it into freezer bags, suck all the air out, and I stick it in the freezer. And because if you're buying in bulk, it's easier. And if you want steaks, buy steaks in bulk and just freeze them. Consider buying whole chickens and learning how to cook a whole chicken. It's much cheaper than just buying,
Sure.
chicken breasts or whatever. So consider buying meat in bulk and then freezing it. It's much, much cheaper. And you can do cheaper cuts too.
Right.
Pork tends to be cheaper. And then on that note, the next tip is along the lines of that is think about doing a meatless meal once or twice a week. And when you're doing a meatless meal, you can still get all your proteins if you know how to mix legumes and rice. So beans and rice will give you a perfect amino acid profile so that you can get all your proteins. And there's a lot of meatless products out there. Yeah, they're a little on the pricier side, but if you want to just learn how to do meatless meals, it's just really getting comfortable with beans and rice. And there's so many good recipes out there. And you might actually really enjoy it. Some people think about not having meat in a meal and they're like, what?
Exactly.
But it can be done.
Yeah, it can be done. Let me ask you about organic versus inorganic. We know that organic can be more expensive than inorganic foods. What do you recommend?
So my philosophy is if you're eating the skin, then I would try to go as organic as possible.
Okay.
And if it's a thing where it's going to get sprayed a lot, like berries have a tendency to get sprayed if you're not buying organic. I don't do berries, or I do organic
Okay.
berries.
Okay.
Bananas, I don't really worry about organic bananas because I'm not
Right.
eating the skin. Um, and if you notice, like if you've ever had an organic apple versus an inorganic apple, the tendency is the inorganic ones, the skin is thicker. It just doesn't taste, it just can have like a chemical taste to it because it's been waxed on the outside. So we buy organic apples because then they're not waxed. They're waxed to make them look pretty.
Sure.
Um, but so we buy flawed fruit because it's fine, but yeah, so I tend to have a tendency if you're going to eat the skin, try to go organic. Yes, it is a little more cost effective. I mean, it's more costly, but the thing is how I also, the other thing I say to people is you're going to pay for your health sooner or later. You're going to. So wouldn't you rather pay for it on the front side, eating healthy, and
Mhm.
then have a longer vivacious life, a life full of years and years full of life? Or do you want to pay, for your health later on in healthcare costs?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
you're going to pay for it. Just make good choices now and feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So Darlene mentioned one of my favorite combinations, different kinds of rice and beans, like you were talking about. So that definitely. And Zinga, we're longtime healthy vegetarians. Okay. Very good. All right.
Yes. Yeah, there's plenty of ways to get full amino acid profiles so you can have a full protein without actually eating an animal product. So
Okay.
it can definitely be done, and have fun researching recipes to do it. And speaking of that, cooking at home is so much more cost effective than eating out. You can make a dinner for a family of 4 at home that would probably cost less than eating out for 2. So really
That's true.
try to cook at home as much as you can. And if you go to a job during the day, pack your lunch. don't go eat out, because you have a tendency when we eat out to not only spend a lot of money, but you don't even really know what you're consuming.
Hmm.
So pack your lunch as much as you can, as much as you can. And that's where, like, I prepare large quantities of food so that we have leftovers for either lunches, or also cooking bigger amounts, is actually a little more cost effective for us, and so there's nothing wrong if you don't, there are people that don't like leftovers, though. I do acknowledge that. But not in my house. Leftovers are a fave in my house. So we cook in big bulk, big amounts, so that we can save a little bit.
Awesome. Great tips so far. Do you have any
So
other
yeah,
tips?
go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just asking if you had any other tips.
Oh, yes.
All
Well,
right.
back to what, our vegetarians were sharing, in the sense of grains and dry goods, bent like beans, lentils, rice, all of those are very fiber rich, and they tend to be less expensive, and you can buy them in bulk at all kinds of stores. So when you're buying in bulk and buying something that's less expensive and actually really healthy and fiber rich for you, imagine what that can do for your budget. So don't be afraid to go down and get, the grain aisle, and do some grains and beans and legumes.
Okay. Very good.
Yep.
Excellent. So Carl's mentioning here, I've been trying Three Sisters cooking too.
Very cool. Awesome.
Cooking.
And I
What
like
is
that your
Three
picture
Sisters?
is
I
a
don't know what
Snickers.
that is.
Well, the Three Sisters is rice, beans, and oh, Carl, remind me. It's like rice, beans, and I can't remember the third one. I'll think of it here in a second. But
Okay.
along those lines, until he pops in and reminds me of what the Three Sisters are, because I learned that's how the Costa Ricans cook. That's where I learned about Three Sisters
Okay.
in
All right. I did not
Costa
know
Rica.
about that. Interesting.
Um,
Very good.
is to avoid highly processed foods. Highly processed foods, like the things that are on the shelves in the middle of the store, tend to be more expensive. They're less nutrient dense. And so you're better off spending that money on whole foods. Yes, squash. Thank you,
Beans,
Carl.
corn, squash. Thank you, Carl. Thanks a lot. That's wonderful. I
Yeah.
know Margie Moore is asking, will you provide the written tip list? Could you do it after the show? Just type in, the
Yeah,
tips. That would
absolutely.
be
I'll go into
wonderful.
the
Yeah,
comment section and I can put that in there, Margie, for sure.
absolutely. Thank you, Margie, for the question there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So another tip is to don't be afraid to buy generic brands. It's okay. They're very, very comparable. When you're buying a name brand product, you're typically paying for the name. But there's all of the stores out there have come out with their own store brand, generic brand, that is very, very comparable. So give it a shot. You don't always have to buy name brand, because that will save you on your budget tremendously,
Sure.
tremendously. And there's tends to be a lot of coupons too for the generic brands too, from the stores themselves, because they want
Hmm.
to support their store brand. So they'll even give you coupons, what makes it even more affordable. So, and
Yeah.
like for Fry's, which is a Kroger brand, because I know we're watching from all over the US, they, based on my card, they know how I shop. So they provide me coupons for things that I'm already buying. And I get them, every so often in the mail, and it's great.
Sure.
So it's really super. And coupons are awesome. Like, don't be afraid to use coupons either. They're
Exactly.
super effective in managing
A
a
question,
budget.
a question about the digital coupons, because we've gotten some complaints of people that don't have smartphones and they can't take advantage of the apps that grocery stores have. But I haven't received a paper in quite a while, in a long time. But I would imagine there's still coupons in the paper, and there's got to be the printed coupons that the stores print out, don't they?
Right. Well, and in your mail, and a lot of the junk mail that you receive from the local stores around you, that's like an ad, and sometimes in there's also coupons. But if you
Hmm.
don't have the ability to have a smartphone, and you are shopping at a Fry's, you could go in and ask them if there's an alternative for you if you don't have a smartphone, and I can pretty much guarantee you that they can help you figure that out.
Okay.
Because if you have a Fry's card, you can load things onto the Fry's card as well. But I'm sure that there are ways to help people that don't have the ability to do a digital coupon.
That would be really
Yeah,
good.
you
Yeah.
just need to ask that store.
Yes. Excellent. We have another comment from Jan. I believe Jan says cooking grain from scratch is not as hard as you may think and tastes better. Nice, very good.
Yes.
Also, squash is
It's
great and very versatile.
yes. Oh yeah. There's a lot of things that you can do with different kinds of produce. And that's one of my
Yes,
tips too is actually get creative with your meals. Don't be afraid to just get, to try some new things. And,
right.
when you're buying foods in bulk, there's so many recipes out there. And all you have to do is you could Google a particular ingredient, a staple that you're wanting to use and then recipe, and you'll get a plethora of them. And
Yes.
so, yeah, don't be afraid to try some new ones.
David mentions a lot of national chain stores use the same account, whether it's via app or website.
Hmm.
Thank you. Thank you, David, for that tip.
Yep, definitely. And
Thanks.
if you're very adventurous, try growing your own produce.
Uh,
It is hard here in Arizona because it's so hot, and the ability, our ground is so hard, so you have to find areas, like down at SCC Scottsdale Community, there's a communal garden down there, and you can pay for an area to grow because you have to find rich soil that's already been taken care of if you're trying to
mhm.
plant it, or you do above ground flower beds and raise your own, grow your own produce. But there are things based on where you are in the nation. There's calendars out there that will show you what to plant, when to plant it, and what thrives in your area. Because I always wanted an avocado tree, but avocados don't do well here. It's too dry, so
Yeah.
it needs to be a much more moist climate. And I'm like, oh, that's the one tree I do want. It's like an avocado tree. But yeah, so try growing your own produce. Tomatoes do great here. I mean, if you want your own fresh tomatoes thrive. But yeah, try growing your own produce or your own herbs that you want to add to recipes and whatnot. So that's another way to really help your budget is just grow your own.
Excellent. Very good.
Or find a farmer's market. Farmers markets tend to be and they're all over. They're going to start back up here real soon. They kind of take a break during the summer here because it's just so hot. But on the weekends, there's farmers markets throughout the valley, and that produce is not very expensive, and you're helping a local grower.
Yeah, that is correct. I think many of the folks watching us today, they're from the East Coast, so they're not dealing with the horrendous heat that we've had in Arizona. 110 days. I don't know how many days we've had over 110 weather. It's been pretty harsh summer.
July was insane. It
That was
was
bad.
it was our hottest month on record.
Tough
But
to
yeah,
grow something.
but they have a winter they can't grow through. So
That's true. It's a trade-off, right? Exactly.
yeah, it just
Sure.
depends. But yeah, I
That
mean, so those are my tips, and I'll definitely put them in the comment
yes.
section. And I mean, it really is about. Oh, we have a question here.
Yeah,
Um,
any special tips for people who are shopping, cooking for one person only?
Darlene, that's a great question. Because I help my brother with this. My brother is disabled. He lives on his own. And so I help him do his shopping and cooking for one person. And it is a little bit more of a challenge. So he shops every week. I help him shop every weekend. And so we just buy just for that week. And he has to buy just smaller quantities is really what it is. Or if he's buying in bulk, we freeze it, and then he doesn't have to buy meat for couple of weeks. So it's the same as if you're doing it for a family. You're going to pare it back just a little bit, and you're still going to freeze things and put them in the freezer if you're buying in bulk. And I think it's more about cooking for one person is a little more challenging than shopping for one person. But if you're okay with leftovers, you could still make a meal for two and then have a leftover the next day. Otherwise, you're just making much smaller meals. But if you're wanting to make them bigger, once again, you just split it up, throw it in the freezer, and maybe the next week you have that same meal.
Great tip. Thank you so much. Again, wonderful tips, Coach SheriAnne. We're almost out of time. So let's talk about 2 weeks. Our show next in 2 weeks will be healthy breakfast, right? Tips
Yep,
on
I'll
healthy
be
breakfast.
displaying a couple of breakfasts that we make here on a regular occasion and giving you some ideas to have some fun, healthy breakfast, because we had to put fun in there.
Absolutely. Got to be fun. Absolutely. We want to say thank you to everybody that participated in today's show. Remember, Coach SheriAnne will be putting the tips on the page on the chat. If you go to the AARP Arizona Facebook page, you will be able to see that after the show. It'll stay there or it'll live there. So please come back and visit us. And hopefully you can join us again in 2 weeks again on a Tuesday. And it's 10 a.m. Arizona time, 1 o'clock Eastern time. So please come back and join us. Any farewell tips, Coach SheriAnne?
No, just have fun with your shopping and cooking. Don't be stressed about it. Just have fun.
Have a good time. Excellent. Very good. Great tip. We want to thank everybody again for joining us. This is Alex Juarez from AARP Arizona saying goodbye. And thank you, Coach SheriAnne. Always a pleasure being with you.
Thanks.
Thank you.